Welcome back for another round of World Talks here on TVP World. My name's Don Arleth. Mark Rutte, the outgoing Dutch Prime Minister, will be NATO's next Secretary General. This comes at an important juncture for the transatlantic security as Russia wages war on Ukraine and the United States pivots to the east. Rutte will take over NATO's top job on October 1st. He will have his hands full, to say the least, dealing with European security in light of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. NATO will also take over the coordination of Ukraine's defense. And in November, the new Secretary General might have to deal with a re-elected President Donald Trump, who has pledged to reassess America's key role in the alliance and threatened to cut off aid to Ukraine. And now joining me to discuss these developments and other issues related to NATO is Magdalena Baran, assistant professor, as well as managing editor at Rutte. Thank you very much for joining me again.
Hello, good evening.
Now, Mark Rutte, we have been hearing this for a while. We had one other candidate coming out of Romania. We had a few holdouts, but it looks like Mark Rutte is now going to be the man in charge there at NATO. In your opinion, is Mark Rutte the right man for the job?
Oh, I think that Mark Rutte might be a really perfect person for this job because, first, he's a kind of a person called, he's reasonable. He's a kind of person who built rather common agreement. On the other hand, he was called the Teflon Mark several times. And again, he's a kind of person who would rather choose a non-conflict path and look for consensus in many cases, and this is exactly what we are going to need probably if we're in trouble, in fact, in NATO. You must remember one thing about Mark Rutte. Mark Rutte was also called the Trump Whisperer. The whole story started in 2018 during the gathering of the alliance in the headquarters of NATO, and there was a huge discussion about Ukraine and Georgia, and in fact Donald Trump just derailed the discussion, and he started to talk more and more about that you need to spend, the rest of the countries, you need to spend more of your GDP on defense. Otherwise, we, as the U.S., we are going to turn back or just to choose our own path. And many people, including Jens Stoltenberg, who still is the secretary-general of NATO, was present there. And literally no one, at least for what we can hear from the politicians, was able to calm Trump down. It was Mark Rutte's job, and later Trump even said that, I like this guy. And another step was even to Trump called Mark Rutte his friend.
Oh, that's big time.
That's really something. If you listen to Trump's speeches, calling someone a friend is a huge step in his case. We can also imagine that, as a prime minister, and please remember that Mark Rutte was the person who held the office probably the longer. It was the longest time in the history of the European Union. So, as a prime minister, he already experienced the rise of Trump and the fall of Trump. And now people would say, he's probably a person possible to handle the second Trump's run if, of course, Trump would win the election in November 2024. Well, we are just about to wait for the first debate between Trump and Biden. It's in our time, European time, is this night.
Yep. It's about 2 a.m. tonight. I'm sure many
Cannot
people will be
wait.
glued to their screens. Exactly.
So he might be
set your alarm for a little later tomorrow.
Yeah, so he might be a good person, and he's a perfect diplomat.
Well, I remember Mark Rutte telling, looking at Europeans trying to eyeball the situation coming out of the United States, of course, when this $61 billion package was held up for all these months. And then, well, it kind of dawned on many leaders around Europe that, well, it is very possible that Donald Trump may be back. And so we've seen many leaders of NATO countries scrambling to shore up defense spending to get to that 2% mark. I remember Mark Rutte earlier in the year saying, actually chastising all these European leaders, saying they need to calm down and stop all this rhetoric that if Donald Trump does come back, yes, it's a possibility, but he can definitely be dealt with. So that is encouraging, but there is this paradox. As you mentioned, Mark Rutte, 12-year prime minister for the Netherlands only spends a little over 1% on their military spending, and despite the warnings from Donald Trump, I think the reason why everybody's so scared about him coming back is he's going to check on their progress and see where they are. So in that guise, is Mark Rutte, how is he going to perform as Secretary General? Is he going to put pressure on his own country to increase their military spending?
Well, right now he'll be operating from much different position. Please bear in mind that one of the reasons that Baltic countries was protesting against Rutte as Secretary General was exactly the thing that the Netherlands government didn't spend enough percentage of the GDP on defense. So he was in trouble. But I think that today's meeting of Stoltenberg and Kaja Kallas, so the Prime Minister of Estonia, and during this meeting, I would say that the prestige of the Baltic countries was a bit risen, but also during this meeting they mentioned that already 23 among 32 members alliance of the NATO spent more than 2% and GDP on defense, and we can expect more. Of course, we can talk that...
we can expect more until November, right?
We can expect more till November, and already Poland is paying much more because it's around 4 right now, even crossing 4%, if I remember correctly. So, but it's not the only situation when Mark Rutte was in trouble. First, the Kaja Kallas was also one of among the candidates, but also, as you mentioned, the Romanian president, Klaus Iohannis. But here, the Romania at the very beginning was against, not only because of the person of Iohannis, but mainly because Rutte, as a prime minister of the Netherlands, it was like a long-term resistance against Romania in Schengen. As you mentioned, that not only countries wanted him as a Secretary General. We still have Hungary, and Hungary. It's probably the last country who said yes, very similar to the presence of Sweden, because it happens in March this year. But in this case, the problem was much deeper. I said that Mark Rutte is a diplomat, but what he did as a prime minister was really, I would say, non-diplomatic behavior when he said, referring to many Parliament's acts that went through the Hungarian Parliament, but it was particularly one, the law anti-LGBT law. And I remember Mark Rutte saying first that, I can say Viktor Orban exactly at this moment, that, it is the reason that Hungary should be out of the European Union, but that's not all. It was even something, one sentence even worse from diplomatic point of view, that the long-term goal in this area is to see Hungary on their knees. And we can imagine that Hungary, that Viktor Orban had a lot of doubts, but finally, just yesterday, since yesterday, we know that we will have a new Secretary General after years of Jens Stoltenberg. We have to remember he was the first Okay, first time he should step down from the office was 2017, and the cadency was extended, and since then it was extended 4 times. Last time a year ago, because of course, 2 reasons. One was a complicated political situation, so the war, mainly the war in Ukraine, but in fact not only. And the second was, some problems to achieve the consensus in the case of the successor.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mark Rutte, some have accused him of being more Central and Eastern Europe. Whether that's true or not, I think we'll see as his role changes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, you mentioned he's a diplomat, so he's going to play this role, which is going to be slightly different than that of the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. But looking at the Netherlands, they had 2 incidents that are quite precarious, if you will. So one is the downing of the Malaysian Airlines flight over Ukraine, mm-hmm. and the subsequent investigations, the outrage that it caused and whatnot. And then you had the Nord Stream. And I believe there was even a time where the 2 had overlapped and the government was, in fact, doing business with the Kremlin. Mm-hmm. And they were doing this, hiding it to Dutch society, which was very, it had the memory of the downed airliner very fresh in their memory. And they probably would have had a different backlash. So how does that influence him as a NATO Secretary General, that he can do business with the Russians while enduring a horrible, nasty act against his own citizens?
That's a difficult question, but and I'm not, but I'm not going to avoid the answer. Since I believe that since he was chosen to be Secretary General, first, probably they made a lot of research examining how the situation looked like from different perspectives, and if he is really able to not to use private opinions, not to be engaged in any kind of a business, but just dedicated himself to this particular mission. And the mission, as we know, since we are about to start in 2 weeks the NATO summit in Washington, and the summit will be about Russia. So I want to believe that that all the cases you mentioned was carefully considered, and that he is in fact the best person for a job. Probably much better than Ioannis, that is too close still to this Russian influenced area, and probably better than Kallas. Yeah, we can discuss what the job is for Kallas to come, of course, mm-hmm. But especially for possible Trump behind the gates, he might be a smart choice.
Well, hopefully he'll strike a good balance between the West and the East. Magdalena Baran, assistant professor and managing editor at Liberté, thank you very much for your insight on this, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you.